Thank you so much, Mr. President, and through you to our colleagues. Mr. President, both the Senate Chair of Ways and Means and the Minority Leader have spoken to the farm relief funding in this bill, and I wanted to rise for the purposes of thanking the Chair of Ways and Means and our Senate President for this funding. On July 10th, the Connecticut and Deerfield rivers, as well as their tributaries like the Mill, Green, Deerfield, Millers, all overflowed their banks due to intense rain. It rained again on July 18th and again on July 21st. In these last days, more than 85 farms have been affected. More than 2,000 acres of crops have been lost. Sewage systems, long in need of repair and renewal, have also been overrun, letting loose millions of gallons of raw sewage into regional rivers, further exacerbating crop damage. Western Mass farms have long been known to have the best soil in the Commonwealth. Some say in the nation. It's the Connecticut River bottom land. And they yield some of the best produce anywhere. And that's, of course, because of the soil, and it's because of our farmers. And now those farmers, some of them working the land for generations, multiple generations, have flooded fields and ruined crops. Immediate flood damage estimates total $15 million, but the long-term economic impact won't be fully understood for a long while. In the short term, crops growing in fields that flooded will need to be destroyed. They're called adulterated, and for public health, they must be turned over. Now, some of these crops were ready to be picked, and so all of the labor, all of the costs associated are gone, and there will be no economic return for that crop. In the longer term, of course, we have fungus and mold, disease that will hurt the plants and hurt the soil, not affected by the flood, but potentially affected by fungus and mold. While all of this is happening, of course, farmers need to pay their bills. They need to pay their staff, their teams, their crews. They need to pay for fertilizer, for seed. They need to figure out how they're going to plant next season. They need to pay their rent and their mortgages and make payments on the significant debt that many carry to continue to do the work they do, because it's important for this chamber to remember that on a good year, farmers make 94 cents for every dollar they spend. 94 cents in a good year for every dollar they spend in the Commonwealth. In the longer term, this Senate knows there's market upheaval to be concerned about, and there's also concern about the feed that livestock need, corn and other grain. We don't know yet whether these crops have been similarly adulterated and then will need to be destroyed, and the farmers will need to pay for grain and corn to feed their livestock. And then there's the impact on food security. Many of these Western Mass and Central Mass farmers are donating to food banks, food pantries. Some of them are mass-grown farmers. Those are the farmers that actually sell their product as part of the Massachusetts Emergency Food Assistance Program. And so their produce goes directly to our food banks. And then many are HIP vendors. The Healthy Incentive Program is one of the best programs that we have in the legislature. It has been fully funded thanks to the work of the Chair of Ways and Means and this Senate and the commitment of the Senate President. And so that program is similarly threatened. That's the long term. But today the Senate says that farming and the food farmers produce, the carbon their fields sequester, the people they employ, the economic engines they power are common goods, the state's business, and something government should protect. Today, the Senate says we're in it with our farmers now, and we're in it with our farmers for the long term. And I am really proud and moved by the way the Senate has met and continues to meet this moment. Earlier this week, the Senate President and the Chair of Ways and Means, Senator Gomez, and the Office of Senator Oliveira were with us on the ground in Hatfield for Cimarosky Farms to be there at an announcement of this funding, grappling with the devastation, grappling with the impact and need for relief. The day after the first flood, MDR Commissioner Ashley Randall and Deputy Commissioner Winton Pidcoff were also on the ground and have remained on the ground almost every day since. The governor and the lieutenant governor, economic Development Secretary Yvonne Howe have also been there, the Western Mass Director for the Governor, and certainly our former colleague, beloved Senator Ann Goby, who's now Rural Affairs Director, have been with these farmers in these fields. And I must say congratulations to the Healy-Driscoll administration, and I know the Senate shares this, for their quick response and for the Farm Resilience Fund, which is going to seek private and corporate philanthropic donations, because the money the Senate is putting in, which is historic and unprecedented, is not enough. And we're going to need to go the long haul with our farmers, and we'll need individuals and private business to go that long haul with us through the Governor's Fund. We also need the USDA to declare a disaster declaration so that our farmers have access to low and no interest loans. Also necessary, not going to pay the bills in the short term, but we need these loans in the long term. And thank you to our congressional delegation advocating hard for on our behalf for this declaration. And that's, of course, Congressman Neal, Congressman McGovern, Senator Warren, Senator Markey, and more. But now, the budget that pens before the Senate, there is this $20 million in relief for farms affected by these extreme weather events. So our Senate here understands that no farms mean no food. We understand that our farmers take care of us, and now it's time for us to take care of them. They understand that the grants and direct assistance are what's needed, not loans, right now with complex applications and a much longer timeline. And they also understand that the flood that came this July is as devastating as the frost and freezes that came earlier this year. So this is a flood, frost, freeze help from the Senate on the way to growers and farm producers. And that means the stone fruit growers like peaches and plums, the berry growers, and others that lost their crops earlier this year will be able to benefit from this fund. Our climate is changing. The severe weather events are becoming more and more frequent. Extreme weather is becoming more extreme. In the long term, I hope that our state will have a permanent fund for disaster relief. But today, I am simply tremendously grateful that our Senate is standing with farmers in the wake of a disaster with $20 million in funding for affected farmers. And I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this bill, again with thanks to the Senate President and the Chair of Ways and Means. This isn't the first time they've come forward for our farmers. I know it won't be the last. We lead on food security and farms in the Senate, and really it is just with utmost gratitude that I say thank you.